The law does not work swiftly. Is there something you can do, or do you need the Supreme Court here to play ball to get this going quickly, to get resolution?
Yeah, well, we will appeal through the process, but we do anticipate getting there quickly. Yes, we do need the Supreme Court. We anticipate that because many of these lawsuits, of course, are filed right here in D.C. Many of these injunctions, these liberal activist judges are based right here. These judges who have no right to control President Trump's agenda. But yeah, of course we need the Supreme Court. We will get there. We will get there fast, and we will prevail. Look what Donald Trump has accomplished in the short time he's been in office. It's remarkable. They can't stand it. They can't handle it. He is saving our country. We are going to protect Americans. We are going to make America prosperous again and safe again.
And let me give a special shout out to the quote-unquote director of national intelligence. First off, Tulsi Gabbard, what is she doing investigating leaks within the United States government? That's the role of the FBI. Director of National Intelligence and our intelligence agencies are all supposed to be looking where? Overseas, and defending us from risks that are coming from abroad. Now she's turning into the head of an American Stasi, where she is trying to find Americans that are disloyal to Donald Trump. I mean, just utterly amazing how horrible this administration is, and it's only going to get worse.
We are under attack from within, Malcolm, as you've always said. We are besieged by our own traitors. Just on one more on Voice of America, Bob tweeted, MAGA killed the Voice of America. This is from the Washington Post. Stalin, Mao, and Khomeini couldn't quell freedom's voice, but Trump did. And you've been, sounding the alarm how serious this is since 11 billion years ago, let's just say. And one tweet I say for you, and I've been saying this to you every week, and I don't want to fearmonger, but somebody tweeted, one day, probably soon, this nation is going to suffer an extreme tragedy. When we turn to our friends and allies for support, we'll realize we don't have any anymore. I mean, when everyone rushed to our aid after 9/11, right? I mean, he has, in record time, pretty much destroyed all of our alliances and made us as weak national security-wise as we've ever been, right?
This is the weakest America's been since before World War I. I'm not saying that, hypothetically. We are literally dismantling the entirety of government here for some neoconservative, actually it's called neo-reactionary theory of the tech bros who are deciding. By the way, the goal of what's happening in Washington is not to relieve a few employees. It's to get rid of all of them and replace them with AI. That's what's happening. You're not looking at the long game if you're just looking at the most recent firings. They intend to fire all of them. But the worst part of all of this is that we have an opportunity to make a change. There's only one thing that will defeat Trump, the tech bros, and MAGA, and that's people power. Getting on the streets. Every one of you, if you see even the slightest protest near you, go to it. Because they cannot defeat people power, but they are mortally terrified of it. And every one of you needs to get out and make sure that your voice is heard and occupy the streets.
God was one of my favorite tweeters, God above, said checks and balances only work if they're enforced. Otherwise, they're just a suggestion box in a dictatorship. So you're absolutely right. And I think this is why people are reacting as they are to Chuck Schumer. I mean, I love what Jen Psaki said. He said, Senator Schumer said he's the best person to be minority leader because he's done it before. Well, Michael Jordan was the best player the Bulls ever had, but that doesn't mean he'd be starting for the team right now. I mean, I just think he's not the man for the moment, right? When, as we keep saying, we have got to have people to get the fierce urgency of now.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm a resident of New York. Chuck Schumer's my senator. Kirsten Gillibrand is the junior senator in my state. In my opinion, they both need to go.
Yeah.
And if they won't go out, then we're going to have to also understand that we are either going to have to instill backbone into them or make it clear that they won't be around should primary time comes. I'm not sure if they're up for re-election. But they just put Kirsten Gillibrand in charge of the senatorial committee, election committee.
Yep. Yeah.
She is just as milquetoast as he is.
Yeah.
She really is. And, this requires a time of fierce urgency of now, where you need to stand on the box and scream, I will defend this country. And I'm not seeing it from the Senate at all.
Yeah.
10 of them cited to say that they were going to avert a catastrophe. You literally can stand on the floor of the Senate for 24 hours and read the Bible, read a book, and show us, rally. This is why we're at 29%. The 50% that are disapproving are Democrats, because we want people to stand up. And by the way, who was it that quit? Simone Sanders?
Yeah.
Bye.
I
We
know.
don't need this.
I know.
We need
That's
freedom
exactly what they
fighters.
want. That was what was behind Dem Exit. Remember that Russia was pushing? I'm like,
She was the spokesperson for the vice president of the United States, which means she just stabbed Kamala Harris in the back.
Yeah.
Or is she doing it for her contract?
yeah, I don't know. Interesting. To that point, we have this debate out here, of course, in California. You know, Malcolm, I've always been a fan of Gavin Newsom. My problem is, I think you retweeted someone about the podcast. Fane Greenwood, I think, is who you retweeted. Just said, fascinating someone as single-mindedly power-hungry as Gavin Newsom was incapable of recognizing that he could have become an extremely powerful anti-Trump warlord almost instantly if he'd gone hard in that direction. Instead, he irretrievably shot himself in the back by starting a podcast. And I would say platforming people like, Steve Bannon and I don't even know who else, Charlie Kirk. I was saying, Malcolm, they've got so many of their own outlets to get their propaganda and lies out there, to then give them ours in this false equivalency, and both sides do it, and maybe we can work together. I mean, I think a lot of us liked Gavin Newsom because he was a good fighter and communicator and would go on Fox News, right? But this, I don't, it's not just the trans issue. It's the whole, being buddy-buddy with election deniers, right?
I mean, people who are opening their podcasts are starting to think, especially Gavin Newsom right now, what did he think he was going to be? The liberal Joe Rogan, and he was going to pull in all these MAGA, tech bro, neo-reactionary philosophers to come on his show. Is he going to have Curtis Yarvin on now to talk about how the...
Oh, no. Malcolm, where has you gone? Oh.
Uh-oh.
A nation turns its lonely eyes to you. Really? Really?
I'm still here.
Oh, there you
There
are.
you are.
All right, go
Okay.
ahead. Finish your thought. Malcolm, hello. Oh, dear. Well, you know what? Speaking of podcasts, one that you do need to listen to is Malcolm Nance talked to Michael Cohen this week. The video can be seen at malcolmnance.substack.com.
That's right. It's a great interview.
Yeah. Malcolm, are you there? Okay.
Yeah, is it a good interview?
All right. I just gave you a plug.
Yes.
Boycott Gavin Newsom, every dang one of you. Kill that podcast, and maybe reality will come back to him.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Love you, Malcolm. Mwah. Are you a yo-yo dieter? You diet, you lose weight, you gain it all back, plus a few extra pounds. Then later you lose it and you regain it again and again. I've been there. It's dangerous. Studies show that you can increase your risk of heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and other health problems. Breaking free of your yo-yo diet pattern is a main reason doctors created Lean. Lean is a supplement, not an injection, and you don't need a prescription. My nephew Robin is using it and has already lost a significant amount of weight. The science behind Lean is impressive. It is studied natural ingredients target weight loss in 3 powerful ways. Lean helps maintain a healthy blood sugar. That helps you control appetites and cravings. And it helps burn fat by converting fat into energy. Listen, if you're tired of losing weight and gaining it back and you want to lose a meaningful weight at a healthy pace, Lean was created just for you. Let me get you started. 20% off when you enter the code Stephanie20 at takelean.com. One more time, that code is Stephanie20 at takelean.com.